This is what I did. I went downtown and I looked at a number of banks. I didn't research any banks. I thought I would just walk into one of the banks off the street, see how things are going, and then make a decision. So I went to a bank, and there was a long line waiting for the customer service person, and the folks standing there looked like they'd been there for a long time. So I went to different banks, and I walked in this one bank, and there was a long line. I asked the security person there, where do I go to talk to someone about banking? He says, he points to me, he didn't even speak, he just pointed to me and just says, over there. I found it kind of cold going into that bank, and I didn't stay. I immediately walked out. So I walked down the road a little further and came across a credit union. Walked in the door of the credit union. It's much smaller, more personal, and the receptionist there was very, very nice. She told me that what I needed in order to get the account established, and so I told her fine. You know, I was impressed with the customer service, and I said I'll be back tomorrow to establish the account. And so I went and got the appropriate documents, which I will share that process with you towards the end. But before I talk about the banking, my own personal banking, my own personal experience in starting an account, I want to share a little bit about the history, a little bit of history from my growing up and my understanding from a little research on banking for Black people in Barbados. So I want to share 3 events that triggered the ideas about banking in Barbados for Black people. 3 events. I was walking in Chimborazo, and I remembered where the lodge used to be. That was right next to Paul Roach's house, the Bowen and Clement and these others, between Mr. Thornton's house and the Roach's house. And they had this building called the Lodge. There was a old gentleman there. He would be collecting money from people, usually Saturday afternoons, and his name was Thaddeus Dean. Thaddeus was like a grandfather. He was a mentor to me because my grandfather died when I was a young age, about 3 years. And I loved Mr. Dean. He was such a wonderful man to talk with and visit. So I would go sit with him in the evenings and we would just talk and talk. But Thaddeus was doing something that the Africans brought over to the Caribbean and other places about helping Black people who didn't have access to banking handle their money. This process I learned is an African term called SUSU, S-O-U-S-O-U, and Su meaning a coin of small value. That was the first event that triggered my concept, my idea about banking. The other item that triggered me, I was walking in town one day and I ran into a young lady who I had met previously, who works for the government at the beaches. And she says, well, I'm going up to Cape Shepherd, up in the cafeteria. You want to come with me? So I walked up there with her. And she says, I'm meeting some people. And she opens up this book. And in this book, she has a whole number of names. And she says, well, I'm waiting because people have to bring me some money. Some people put in different hands and stuff like that. I knew what she was talking about. I didn't pry anymore. I didn't think it was my business. But that was the second trigger. And then the third trigger event was I was at the little rum shop up the road from the house where I'm staying, and this one young lady there, she seems to be struggling a bit. She was complaining. She was complaining about meeting her expenses, and she says, well, my meeting time is coming up soon. I can't wait because I got to pay off a bunch of bills. Let me give you my best understanding of how that process works based on my research. Let's say you have 10 individuals in this meeting or the susu or whatever we call it. Each person, let's say, put in $100. That is $1,000. At some predetermined process, that $1,000 that's collected goes to one of the individuals. Now, that person who collects the money, the person who collects the purse, bear in mind, has only put in $100. Everybody else put in $100. They get that $1,000 and walk away. Now, they start taking turns from there. and that's predetermined and set up in the rules, the unofficial rules. This group is usually family members or close friends. And so next month, when everybody put in their 100, the next person get the 1,000, and so on all the way through until everybody gets their 1,000, and they move on to another cycle. Now, what's important here about this is that there is a high degree of trust. Okay, so what's important here is that this system, just like in the African system, requires a high degree of trust. Because if that first person who goes to the meeting takes that $1,000 and then does not contribute for the next 10 months or for the next 10 people, the system breaks down. The challenge that we have is there is no legal recourse because this is all agreed contractually by mouth with each other. And this is how the system works. Why is this important? In Barbados, many years ago, black people didn't have access to the banks. Mostly the white people, who were the plantation owners in those, had this access to the banks. And we know that if black folks don't have financial training, if they don't have an opportunity to credit and markets, they won't be able to build wealth. This is still true in the United States and other developed countries. It is important. And so by not having access to the traditional banks, the systems of saving, the systems of helping people, monetize came about. This underground kind of banking, informal banking system. Based on my research, I discovered that the Chinese do it, the Africans do it in the country, in the United States. So there are a lot of different ways Susu is being administered by lots of different underground groups. The Mexicans, all of them, they do this process. So here in Barbados, and I go back to Mr. And I'm competing with the dogs. Of course, I don't have the studio. But I go back to Mr. Dean, my good mentor and friend, and how he collected the money, and I don't remember exactly how that process went. I go back to the young lady who she's managing it for the group of people, and then this young lady who's expecting her money. So this is a really important sub-network of banking. Some of these people don't have the will, the whereabouts, the means, enough money to go down and put money in the bank each month. So this is the process that works, and hopefully that was informative for you. Now, let me go on to what I learned about the banking system as I opened my bank account. Hopefully this will help some of you expecting to open a bank account in the future. Now, as I said, opening my account, I went to a credit union. Credit union is a little bit different than a bank. You become a shareholder or a member of the credit union. As you know, it's just like back in the States, very similar process. But you've got to put about, I think, $50 in as your money, about $10 to join the credit union. You need 3 forms of ID. So I was able to use my US driver's license, my passport, and another form of ID, and as identification of whom I am, so I can start the account. The other thing that might be important here for you is this. You do not have to have a Barbados address to open a bank account at the credit union. I was able to use my stateside address for the bank account. A couple other things that I found that was also noteworthy and important is that if you deposit a personal check, and they will let you deposit a personal check, but it takes 2 months to clear that personal check. So you figure out how you want to get your money there. You can't do bank wire transfers from your bank if your bank permit. The credit union doesn't charge you for the wire transfer, but your establishment back stateside might charge you. And the final thing I'd like to share about this is that the deposit account, I was able to get my debit card right away, but I can only use that debit card in Barbados. Now they have access to a whole lot of different services like mortgages you know, different buying cars and stuff, that you can have access to those services, and they were willing to share that information with me. So I hope this explanation of what I have done was useful for you. And so as I wrap up, I want to encourage you to continue to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the like button there if you like the materials. Hit the little bell so you can get reminded when a new video is posted. And do share the information that you get if you can find it of value. Now, some individuals have called me, some individuals have sent me messages. I've seen some postings that folks says, hey, we like the videos, we like what you're doing, we're learning a lot, keep them coming, or we miss hearing from you. I just want to let you know it's a lot of work to collect information and produce these videos, but I want to make sure that they're adding value. I want to make sure that you are enjoying them. So thank you. Don't forget, subscribe and share and hit the reminder. Thank you very much.